I'm going to speak to three of our ministries. The first one being worship, music, and arts. You can see all of the pertinent information. But to summarize, this is the ministry that provides us with our worshipful environment and all of the important details of our Sunday morning services and special services. As you can see, we've had special services for Ash Wednesday, Maundy Thursday. Our Thursday evening Abbey worship service is a very well-attended, very meaningful service. On the others, we've had, we're trying out some different things, as you have seen, having our offertory in the back, our questions of the morning. There's always some kind of creative new idea coming out of this committee. You can also see on this page what our annual attendance is in all of the venues or the ways in which you can worship. Children and youth ministries. We had a really exciting opportunity this summer to return to having a VBS program, which was very successful. The kids had a great time, the grown-ups did, and we'll be certainly promoting another experience like that this coming summer. There were summer camps, Vacation Bible School, as mentioned. Light and Love is an extremely strong and very meaningful opportunity for our young people. Reverend Caitlin, of course, directs that and plans the programming. There's always room for help from other people to provide meals, so if you're interested, check with her. She also leads our college ministry and outreach to Washington College, and has developed, as you can see here, Sacred Conversations, which is with students at the college that are interested in participating in this. Adult ministries. This encompasses the fellowship and kitchen. We now have a coordinator from this committee that works with our kitchen to provide supplies and organize our fellowship hour. We've had lots of outings outside of church this past year, including the Packet, a trip to the Garfield, a trip to the college for a soccer game, July 4th at Wilmer Park. Hopefully you all will participate in some of those things this coming year. Potluck brunches, chili and trivial pursuits, lots of after worship brunches. We had a wonderful picnic in June and a wonderful picnic again in October outside with games and with a food truck. Very important are all the small groups that are sponsored by this committee. We have 9, which meet at different times, different frequencies. There's plenty of information. If you'd like to get involved, do sign up. Our biggest new activity or opportunity is Alpha, which is going strong, is very well attended, and provides a Sunday evening opportunity for shared meal, video discussion, and congregational interaction. So please check these out and decide which ones you would like to pursue. There are a lot of opportunities for everyone.
As the next presenter steps forward, notice at the top there are names of the lead elder, the support elder, and maybe a chair. So even if the presenter is the one speaking to it, you have room to talk to any one of those folks if you have questions about it.
Well, good morning. Outreach and communications, you can see some of our highlights. We've increased our community visibility, hosted Messiah Sing-Along for the second year, added new banners along 213, and we expanded our advertising and social media presence. We're also working on welcoming and inclusion for people coming in and visiting us, welcoming them to our congregation and services. Our priorities for the future year, a big one is going to be launching a app which is known as CH Meetings. It'll be taking the place of our church directory. We'll be bringing that out in the very near future, teaching or showing people how to load it onto their electronic devices and how to use it for the church directory, how to use it to see who is on what committees, to add yourself to committees and other opportunities. Improving our Route 213 visibility so more people can know what this building is as they drive by. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm here to talk about missions and property. And I'm going to I talked about missions a few weeks ago from an overarching sense of what we do in our mission committee. So I'm going to talk about three things today. First, you all filled out, I say you all, 50 people filled out orange cards. If you have not stopped, you should read them. It's what our community believes. If you read them, what you will feel is a group of people with arms locked, focused on Christ, and, as somebody said, helping those in need, less fortunate. And that's what missions is all about. Thank you for this lead-in. But it's terrific, and I never felt better about our church community after reading all those sticky notes. So the first page of the missions comments are very worthwhile. I've kind of said them before. Read them. They're well written. I want to talk today about the second sheet as my second point this morning, and that is mission giving. So you haven't seen this data depicted this way before. The left column is what we call operating mission. That's what the mission committee that you charge and you have an option to serve on if you would like. That's what they have to spend every year to support our church reaching out to the community. It's roughly $50,000. It does include the per capita, if you're keeping notes. Then we have another column that says designated. And that's somebody that says, I want to give money to our church to go to disaster relief, or I want to give money to our church to go to the food pantry. So those are designated funds. And you as a congregation gave over $14,000 in 2024. But then there's another big column that says long-term. So what is this? That's somebody that says, I want to give a chunk of funds to be used for helping people, to help women who are single and or battered or need mental health support. And I want to give this chunk of money to the church, take it and do good. And those good works resulted in us giving over $40,000 this year out of monies that were given by you and other members of the community for long-term giving. So while we say our mission committee handles $40,000 plus the per capita, or $43,000, what you give to joy offering or other special designated gifts, and what you give for the longer-term, bigger items was well over $100,000 this year. But as they say on TV, wait, there's more. This year, we took $5,000 out of the operating fund and $7,500 out of long-term, and together made $12,500 and gave it to an initiative called Raising Houses. It's to take people's homes that are deluged with floodwaters year after year and raise the foundations so that we stop the cycle of destruction. We gave $12,500. But that was doubled by the Presbyterian to $25,000. And then somebody donated matching funds to Presbyterian to double that. So that $12,500 was really $50,000 that went to raising homes. And by the way, $50,000 can raise one home. Just think. So you can add another $37,000 to those columns that you see. And the impact of our giving was well over 3 times what we call mission giving. Fantastic. Unbelievable. Read it with that in the back of your mind. The last thing I'll talk about missions is priorities. We want to create more opportunities for you to be involved. And when you read through these opportunities, you can see things that say like rebuilding together or raising homes. And someone might think, and I mentioned this last year when we did our Deep Roots trip, might think, well, that's great if you can swing a hammer and climb up and handle. No, we need everybody. We need people to read directions. We need people to help get water. We need people to be there when you pick up the pieces of somebody banging their finger with a hammer or whatever it takes. Everybody can be involved, and we're going to try and create more opportunities this year for people to volunteer who choose to, who feel like they want to be a part of something, giving themselves outside of our church. That's what I have to say about mission. My next comments will be about property. I'll make this very quickly. These also are very well written, and I would comment in use of space. Who uses our space? Chester River Chorale, Alcoholics Anonymous, yoga, quilters, Quaker Friends, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. We're going to have a session in our fellowship hall to talk about housing issues in Chestertown. We have the winter shelter that's going to be using our building. We use our building for an awful lot of things. And so I thank you for all your support of those activities when we ask for volunteers. One other highlight I would like to bring out, and there's a few people in our church that have worked on this, some donated money, but right now, you cannot change these, the temperature, the thermostats, in the major areas of our church. It's restricted, and it's only a few people that will make those changes, and they'll happily do it. And Bland Dickey is over in Israel now, and I can send him an email, and he'll make a change, which is quite amazing. Well, why is that? Why would you do that? Why can't anybody just push a button? Here's why. Because we had somebody come in to church and said, well, we need to make this warmer, and push a couple of buttons and push a couple of buttons. And what happens is immediately all these big units come on, and you get a spike in energy. And whatever that spike is, we pay for that spike usage for the entire month. So when somebody pushed a couple of buttons, it cost $900. Think about it. What the folks in property that are doing now, controlling this and bringing the temperatures up slowly and taking them down and looking at the schedule, has saved $6,000 of unnecessary electric cost this year. Fantastic. And Ed Fry is the leader of property, and I don't see Ed here today, but Ed does a terrific job, and I want to thank everybody for all your support and tolerance when you hear that, oh, I got to go to somebody to press some computer thing to make the temperature go up. It's all for the good. Thank you very much.
So, Scott Lovelace on behalf of the HR committee, admirably led by Steve Thur. The first thing I want to say is this was so exciting this year to look at our staff and say, hey, we ended the year with the same staff we started with. That hasn't happened for a while here. You know, we didn't have to advertise for positions, we didn't have to interview people, and we were just so fortunate in having Val in the office. She's done a great job. We've increased our hours by 5 hours more each week because she's just doing such a great job and we have so much work. And just, Betsy's not here today, but I think everybody agrees that she's been a fantastic addition. She has so many contacts in the community, all these solo people that come in. We're just very fortunate. We're also fortunate in having two dedicated, committed pastors. When I think about the awesome responsibility of every week trying to think about what God wants this congregation to hear, and they're the ones that have to discern that through prayer and study and looking at the Greek and the Hebrew. It's just, it's impressive. And so not only in preaching, they're wonderful teachers, they're active in our community, serving on boards. And I also like the fact that yes, they focus on the spiritual and the mental, but they also remember that they have to take care of their bodies. And so I love the fact that Caitlin's running around on the field hockey fields. This year, Joel was helping be assistant coach for the girls' soccer at Kent County. So it's really important that we have pastors. It's a stressful job, and we want to make sure they stay healthy. So not only are they recognized as leaders in the community, but also at Presbyterian. There's notes here that, a year ago, Joel was elected vice moderator of the entire Presbyterian, and now he started his role as moderator. And we had a wonderful worship service here earlier this month. For those of you who were able to be here, Caitlin was elected as the commissioner to the General Assembly last year. So we are well recognized within Presbyterian. Presbyterian loves coming to our church, just feeling the warmth and hospitality. And speaking of warmth and hospitality, we had yet another intern earlier this year with Bob Miller. And even though Broby was sort of 2023, those of us in 2024 that got to see Broby's installation at the Ghanaian church, it's probably the most joyous Presbyterian service I've ever been part of. So that was fantastic. Priorities, we're almost finished reviewing all the position descriptions. We're going to institute a more formal feedback process and have mid-year reviews so that we can go over how we're doing on our goals. So this is the time in the service where traditionally we ask our pastors to go in the narthex so that we can talk about their call. So,
Page down.
yep. So sort of divided. At the top, you can see Caitlin on the left, Joel on the right. We have 2024 and 2025. And so I'll just go down that left side with, the salary and compensation, the reimbursements, the benefits, and the leave. So this year, Caitlin is getting a 3.75% increase. That total, we decided that they would both get the same dollar amount, which means Joel's percentage is slightly down. There's no difference this year with the continuing ed and the professional expense, and this is a reimbursement program. They have expenses, they have to turn in receipts. The benefits, that's a lot of data there. These percentages are sort of dictated by PCUSA Church. We don't really have much control of that. And the leave, we have stayed the same, 4 weeks vacation and study leave for 2 weeks. And so this is the call of our pastors. It's not something that session can approve. It's something only this congregation can approve their call every year. So if there's any questions of that, let me know, and then we'll have a motion that needs to be seconded, and then we'll vote on that. But does anybody have any questions about pastor's call? Okay. Barbara. Yeah, yes. Joel wanted to have the same amount of money, and that means it's a lower percentage to sort of narrow the gap between the two salaries. So it was his decision. Do I hear? Oh. Excuse me? Okay. Second? Okay. Are we ready to vote? All those in favor, say aye. Any nay? No? All right. Before I get the pastors back in here, I just wanted to share a short story that moved my heart last Sunday night. We had Alpha last Sunday night. You're aware of this strange thing that fell from the sky that was either snow or ice or sleet or rain. And of course, it happened right when we were doing Alpha. And so when the group goes off for 45 minutes to discuss the video, Joel and I take down the video, go in the kitchen, do a few things to clean up. And I finally said, Joel, go home. You have had a long day. And a couple minutes later, I saw him head out with his jacket. And I did a few things, and I looked out, and the sleet had stopped. And so I went to get a shovel, and I went out in the parking lot, and I heard this sound. It was like, I'm like, what is that? And then I look out in the parking lot, And there's Joel with his scraper, scraping all the cars in the parking lot to get the ice off the windshield. So just touched my heart. We have servant pastors. They see a need and fill it. So just really appreciate them. So why don't we ask them back? Hopefully they haven't gone too far or left the building, because they still have a few things to say, I'm sure. There we go. Please come back in. Okay, I got one more thing. Task forces. You know, this is a Presbyterian church, and when we have things to do, we form task forces. So many of you may not know that more than a year ago, we received a gift of $137,000, and our instructions were literally this was all that we had associated with that gift: Kent County residents who are victims of spousal and parental abuse. And so, you know, we ended up forming a task force to decide how to spend that money. And we did a lot of research and interviewed different agencies, and we came up with something that said we want to spend a significant portion for 2 different agencies. You can read about them here, to do something every year, and we review every year to see if it's still warranted. But we also found out in our research about abuse is that preschools, affordable preschools, can have an impact on victims of abuse. It may enable someone with children to move out of a situation where they're being abused to be able to work, but have affordable childcare for their children. So we have reserved a certain amount of money for the possible use in preschool. So fast forward to January last year, we said, what are 2 of the things that we really want to do and investigate? And one of those was having a preschool. And, you know, Kent County, as we describe here, is a preschool desert, and we are in desperate need of affordable daycare. And so this task force is looking at that, talking with people in the community, and they should have a report to session by mid-year. Task force Vital. We were originally asked to look at having a contemporary worship service. Formed a task force, got to researching it, read books, talked to other pastors, and decided that it was a bigger issue than just having another service. It was, how do we revitalize this congregation so that we can all be disciples of Jesus? And, you know, my hope someday is, and one of the things we learned about, though, in terms of what a vital congregation is where every member does something in the church. So if we look at our new church directory, under every person's name, there'll be an activity that those people are associated with. So that's my vision. We've suggested changes, some of which you've already seen, some of the more recent ones. Another aspect of a vital church is they're a praying church, and we now have a prayer group that meets every Wednesday evening and prays for this church, the pastors, the city, people in this congregation by name. And then the latest example of an alpha is the alpha. That was a recommendation where we thought we needed to strengthen ourselves so that we could go out and be faithful disciples of Jesus. So I'll stop now. Deacons.
Well, I'm delighted that on my first day of the job, I get to present this report that was prepared by Terry Gloyd. It very well describes what we do as a deacon. And I would say underlying all of these jobs that we perform with love is that we sincerely want to help other people, be there when they need us, and show them the love of Christ. So please read your deacon's report.
So I'm a member of the Stewardship and Planning Committee, but I'll tell you the real powerhouse behind that is Bland Dickey, who led the campaign to create a narrative budget in the fall We focused on looking at where we belong through worship and music, how we behave through loving outreach and fellowship, and what we believe through discipleship and pastoral care. And you may remember the announcements and the pleas for pledges leading up to the end of the year. And we got a significant number of members of our church community who pledged, and increasing numbers of people have pledged and increasing pledges. Our pledges still dwarf our needs for 2025, but we have about 80% of our church community that has pledged to support this church over the next year.
Good morning. I'm Bob Schofield, and I'm chair of the Administration and Finance Committee, and I'm also treasurer of this church. My role here is to bring you up to date on the financial health of the church. There's a lot of words up there. I don't expect you to read them. There's two of them I'd like to highlight. The first bullet in the left-hand column, we had a surplus this year of $6,600, but that was due primarily to the fact that our investments in the Schwab account yielded capital gains of over $100,000. That committee is led by Bob Basner and Ed Fry, and boy, do they deserve a hand. They study the market, they've invested your money carefully, and we had great returns. And that kept us in the black for this year, but without that, we would not have been. The second bullet in the middle column talks about controls. One of the requirements of Presbyterian is that we have an audit every year done by 2 or more members of our church who are not on session and not involved with the financial aspects of that. This year, Bob Brillhart and Bill Williams did that. They did a fine job. They did their report, and they didn't find anything other than a few insignificant things. So you can trust that your funds are well controlled and well protected. Let's see, down. Okay. This confuses everybody every year, and so I want to spend just a minute on it. We keep our books really in 3 categories. The general funds are those things that you normally associate with operating a church. Contributions, plate contributions, interest, dividends, and expenses of the building, mission committee, paying our pastors, plowing the sidewalk, all that kind of stuff. On the next page, you'll see more about that. But that's what that is. Joel also mentioned the designated gifts. Those are gifts that people give to us for about 6 or 7 charities that have been approved by session. So you can't just say, oh, I want to give money to the Heart Association and send it here and have us forward it. But some of these are local charities, community food pantry, things like that. Some of them are Presbyterian charities, Joy Offering, One Great Hour of Sharing. Those monies come into us, we collect them. After that campaign is over, we send them off to the recipient dollar for dollar. We don't keep any of that money for ourselves. Long-term gifts are those gifts that are not going to be expended in the current year. Scott mentioned the estate that gave us $137,000 for abused women and children. We have had a lot of estate giving over the last 10 or 15 years. Those funds have carried us very well. Those funds are sometimes used for mission projects, as Joel had on his chart, but sometimes those are used for our own uses here. We have a building fund that's money set aside in case we need a new roof or a furnace goes out, we need to replace that. So those are those 3 funds that we use. Now, these are the financial statements. I don't expect anybody to read those now and really understand them, but I want to say on the left-hand side is your income statement. On the right-hand side is your balance sheet. It shows your 2024 budget, 2024 actual, and 2025 budget. The 2024 actual shows that $6,600 surplus that we had. This 2025 budget does not show that. It shows a deficit. When you add it all together, and we've done the session committees have done a terrific job in trying to keep their costs under control, but it costs a lot of money to heat this building. We've guaranteed a certain amount of money for our mission committee. We have to pay our pastors for their hard work. And so that's a $60,000 deficit. So Admin and Finance has created a committee to close that gap, to try to bring us our expenses more in line with our income more in line with our expenses. Either way, we've cleverly named that committee the Close the Gap Committee. Thank you, Mark Kamen, for that wonderful name. That committee just started meeting, and we're figuring out how we can fix this problem because it is not sustainable. Deficits are not sustainable. So we have that committee in place, and you'll hear more about that. The last thing I want to say is that the books of this congregation belong to you. They don't belong to Joel and Caitlin. They don't belong to me. They belong to the congregation. If anybody has any questions about our statements or how we keep our books or what we do, please ask me. Every year, don't be bashful about it, because every year somebody will call me or email me and say, you said something that confused me. Can you straighten me out? I don't understand this. Please feel free to ask me any questions. Are there any right now?
Over here, why are liabilities and equities the same thing, or are they?
Why are total liabilities in equity? That has to equal total assets. Accounting says it has to equal that. Is that your question? Yeah. Okay. Double entry bookkeeping. What goes in on the left has to be the same amount that goes in on the right.
I have a question, Bob. Is this the first year that we're planning on using long-term funds to balance an operating deficit?
No, we've been doing that for about 8 years. Ever since I've been involved, we've been doing that. It's never been this bad, however. In the past, it was a couple of $1,000, $4,000 or $5,000, that we would find a reason to look at those funds and say, oh, we can justify saying that we spent those this year. So we have a problem, we need to fix it, and the Stop the Gap Committee is working on that. If anybody has any ideas on what we can do, please talk to Bland or Letha, Mark Kamen, Doug West, or me.
One more, Bob. What was the planned anticipated deficit year 2020?
Oh, Lord, I don't know.
48,000.
Oh, yeah, the 48,000, yeah. Planned deficit was 48,000 in 2020, and we were planning on closing that gap by $12,000 a year over the next 4 or 5 years. And then we had COVID, and we stopped having in-person services. Our service attendance is down, and if people don't come to church but live online, they may not give money, and so contributions are down. Answer your question? I see another hand.
So missions spent $104,000. I'm assuming that's broken up between missions designated out and somewhere else.
Missions, now wait, I need to see what you're talking about. The 104,000 consists of the 40. It's not on this sheet. That's, and I wish I had a pointer. Mm-hmm. If you look on the left, under expenses, the fourth line, I think it is, in the middle column says missions spent $48,000. To that, we add $14,000 of designated gifts, and then we add the commensurate amount from long-term gifts that went for missions. And we consider missions to be the Malawi visitors we had, the money we went for raising houses that Joel mentioned, The $16,000 that we gave, and you can see that on the right-hand side under trust, there's a negative 16 in the right-hand column that we gave for abused children and women. So that 104,000 is a combination of things. It's not on that sheet of paper. Other questions?
Great question. Thank you for that.
Thank you for your attention.
All right. A few more little things. First, nominating committee. Come on up, Lanny. We have some stuff for you to do. Remember, the nominating committee of this congregation is elected every year at this time, and their job is to nominate deacons and elders. So today, your 2024 nominating committee celebrates the end of their service, right? And they sucker 7 of us back into doing it again. And the session has nominated their 2, and the deacons have nominated their 1. Woohoo.
Okay. Do we also want to close the nomination for the 1-year terms for elder and deacon?
Yes, and they
Yes,
also
thank
bring
you.
you some business today. Your 2024 brings you some business before we elect your 2025. You had 2 openings.
Thank
one
you.
for elder and one for deacon.
Yes, those were 1-year unexpired terms. And for those positions, as you saw on the sheet that showed you our leaders, we have nominated Jeff Davis for the 1-year unexpired term on the deacons, and Grady McIntyre for the 1-year unexpired term of elder.
As is always the custom, we admire and appreciate the nominating committee, but you as congregation have the ability to nominate somebody other than the ones they recommend to you. So I'm going to open the floor for nominees for either of those positions now, if you want to make an alternate suggestion. Are there any objections to closing the nominations so that we can vote? No objection. Nominations are closed. Let's vote on these 2 nominees with one action, if y'all are okay with that. Grady McIntyre to fill the 1-year term as elder, and Jeff Davis to fill your 1-term term as deacon. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. So ordered. Thank you, 2.
The 4 nominees for the at-large places on next year's nominating committee, we submit these names. They have all agreed to serve. Scott Jones, Deb Pease, Sue Willits, and James Wood.
That fulfills the majority. Again, the floor is open to other nominees beside the 4 recommended from the nominating committee to serve on the new nominating committee. How many times do I have to say that word? Any other nominees for the nominating committee?
I move that we accept the 4 names presented by the nominating committee.
Any objection to closing the floor, what she's doing? Floor is closed. The motion's on the floor. All in favor of those 4 being the congregation representatives to the nominating committee, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? We have a nominating committee. Thank you, Ms. Lanning. We are going to temporarily suspend the congregational meeting and step into the corporate meeting now, which is also a requirement in any state that allows a church to be a corporation. We are, and we do, so we are. Remember, corporate business of a church is limited to what your board, the trustees, the session, says. But the congregation/corporation has power over certain things. Who will represent you on corporate legal documents and enforce the decisions of your trustees, the session? And is there any property thing being changed or added or suggested? This year, you don't have any corporate business, but session does, as your board, bring you nominees for your corporate officers, and they approved me to stand in as your moderator for this part of the meeting. So session nominates 3 people: Ed Fry to repeat as your corporate president in 2025, Bob Schofield to, oh, look at that. All right, Bob Schofield to repeat as, right now, Java. Really? You want to update right now? Come on. We're busy here. I told you no. What are you doing to me? Java. So old school. Okay, back to corporate. The session, your board of trustees nominates Ed Fry as your corporate president, Bob Schofield, your treasurer, to be the corporate treasurer, and Joanne Clark as your clerk of session to be corporate secretary. Those are their nominees. Does anybody wish to make a different nominee as your corporate officers? Any opposition to closing the nominations for corporate officers? Hearing none, so ordered. All in favor of those three being your corporate officers, aye. Any opposed, nay. They are your corporate officers. That's all the corporate business, so we're backing out of the corporate meeting back into the congregational meeting now. Reverend Caitlin and I wrote our end-of-year reflections separately. She said, what do you think about mine? I said, I ain't reading yours till I write mine. We both wrote ours, and they both reflect something. There's a sense that we are at in-between times. I don't know how to say it, but she says it as a cool 40s where you're caring for your parents and your kids at the same time. You feel in between? I called it an inflection point feeling. I almost called it an Exodus feeling, but I stayed with the engineer over the Bible. I'm not sure what 2025 means. I know it won't be 2024, 23, 22, 21. But I don't know what 25 will make for 6, 7, 8, 9. Something's a little different. And we feel that in y'all. We hear that in you. Right? Some of you are saying, woohoo! And some of you are saying, what are y'all doing? And some of you are saying faster, and some of you are saying slower. It's a weird spot to be in as pastors and as leaders. Here's what I ask you. Be one community. Be generous. Be compassionate to one another. Be non-judgmental of those who see church, worship, life very differently. Choose to serve and make worship a place where you can serve as a place where you come to be served. I think if those really are our values, 2025 will be better than fine. It'll be amazing. Is there a motion to adjourn our congregational meeting? Any opposed to adjourning? Madam Clerk, have we covered everything sufficiently? You think so? May I pray us out? Thank you, God, for letting me and Caitlin hit the snack table first. Thank you, God, for laughter in this one of your many sanctuaries. Thank you for the crazy hours some of these people have given over the past 40 years or 4 years or 4 Sundays to make what happens here build kingdom. Be very close to us. Be the ever-creating God and keep on creating something new. Even if you hide from us, we are going to seek you and try to follow you. Be patient with us when we can't find you. If we get lost, lead us by your Holy Spirit and bring us new partners, people who want peace and justice everywhere. We want to be on mission with one another and with you. So we go from here celebrating an amazing year and hoping for another one. Amen? Amen. We are adjourned. Good job, session. Good job, leaders.